This is Keys to the Shop, episode 144, a conversation with 2019 U.S. Barista Champion Sam Spillman of Dillanos Coffee Roasters. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DiFirio. I'm your host for the show. Thank you for joining me on this very special episode where we get to have a conversation with the newly crowned U.S. Barista Champion, Sam Spillman. Now, this episode is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is a leading specialty coffee equipment supplier who curates the best equipment from around the world to fit perfectly with the needs of both their enthusiast and professional customers. So whether you're building out a great home bar or you're building out a commercial coffee bar, Prima has what you need. Helping you succeed in making great coffee is what drives them. So if you're looking for the best equipment and expert assistance to go along with it, look no further than prima-coffee.com. So email them, call them, let them find the right equipment to fit whatever situation you happen to be in, and definitely visit them again if you're in Boston, booth 418. And thank you very much, Prima, for your support of Keys to the Shop. This episode is also brought to you by the Pacific Barista Series. This is a line of plant-based performance beverages that are designed specifically for professional baristas and the standards for excellence that they demand. So whether we're talking about almond milk, soy, coconut, rice, oat, whatever, its ability to take the heat from steaming, produce an unmatched silky texture, and keep the flavor balance of the beverage focused on coffee makes it a perfect choice for your cafe's menu. Pacific is a huge supporter of the specialty coffee and barista community. You especially see this in the support that they give to the baristas in these competitions. You'll see this in Boston as well at the World Barista Championships. And you see it in these products. They're designed specifically with the input of professional baristas, and they just do a fantastic job serving the community. So I would encourage you, go to pacificfoods.com, learn more about the Barista Series line of plant-based performance beverages, and find out what they can do to help elevate the non-dairy offerings you give your customers in your cafe. Thank you very much, Pacific, for your support of Keys to the Shop. Okay, so today we get to talk with Sam Spillman. She is the new U.S. Barista Champion, just newly crowned, and it's just such an exciting thing to be able to get to interview her so soon after the competition. So in this conversation with Sam, we get to dive into details about her coming up in coffee, from a first-time barista to the barista trainer that she is today, and all points in between. We talk about also her competition experiences and how those shaped her, both as a professional in the shop and on the stage as a competitor. And of course, we talk about her winning performance at the U.S. Coffee Championships. What went into it? What was the inspiration for it? What kind of challenges were overcome while coming up with these ideas to present to the judges? I think you'll definitely take some inspiration away from this conversation with Sam. She has just a wonderful, deep emotional connection to the farm that she represented on stage, and such a love for the coffee community. And all of that is clearly demonstrated in this conversation, as well as in what she did on stage. She is a fabulous champion and representative for specialty coffee. I'm really excited for her and excited to share this conversation with you. So without further ado from me, here is my conversation with the 2019 U.S. Barista Champion, Sam Spillman. Well, hi, Sam. Welcome to Keys to the Shop. Happy to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a crazy experience for sure. I appreciate it, though. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us so soon after your victory. And it was such a great reaction you had to getting the top place there. It was so just smiling from ear to ear. I mean, obviously, that was just like a fairy tale for you.
Yeah, I've been dreaming of this forever. And I honestly never thought it would become a reality. There's very few opportunities for this to actually happen. And oh my gosh, it was a dream come true. Like literally, it was amazing.
So, I mean, you've been working towards something like this for a while. And how long have you actually been in the coffee industry?
I've been in the coffee industry since I was 19, so about 7 years. And I started out at a little mom and pop shop in North Idaho. Started working. I fell in love with it because the community, like I just noticed a shop that everybody used to hang out at. And I was like, I want to be around people. So of course I want to work here. And then as soon as I started working there, I just fell in love with it, fell in love with the coffee and the community and all the beautiful things. And when I moved to Seattle a few months later for school, and I got hired on at a little roasting company in Seattle. And I was luckily trained by Layla Gambari. She was my first trainer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I got very lucky in that. And she, from there, just became my mentor and pushed me into competition and really just inspired me as a woman in the industry too. Like, she was doing all these big things and having such an impact on the industry. And I just remember thinking to myself, I want to do that one day. I want to have an impact. I want to influence people's coffee careers and show them that there's so much more than just making coffee drinks every day. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome that you entered in with, such a powerhouse like Layla, and inspired you in your pursuit of professional coffee. Like you said, as a female in coffee, having that mentorship is especially important, right? Because it's not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like being completely candid with you. As far as female figures in my life, I had never met someone like Layla, who was just so strong in who she was as a woman and in the industry and as a leader. And that's when I came to the realization, like, oh, I can do this too. Yeah, nice. And that was my goal from there. Was, okay, here we go. How do we do this? Let's keep working.
Wow. Okay. So when you started down this road of competition, that like you said, it was really shortly after you were trained, and Layla was that inspiration. It sounds like you were just gung-ho from the beginning. Were there any fears you had going into competition? Like, were you nervous to just like go out there and start, presenting to judges in front of audiences? Because up until that point, right, you'd just been working in shops.
Oh my gosh. I was so nervous. I was so scared. Just being in front of people like that on a competitive level, it was very frightening. But I also am one of the most competitive people you will meet. If you ask my husband, I can't play a game without getting super angry if I lose.
Nice.
Just part of who I am. Yeah, so I kind of love the adrenaline of the fear of it, if that makes sense. But it kind of fueled like the competitive side. Yeah.
So your first competition experience, was that while working with Layla?
At that time, so my first competition experience was Brewers Cup. I did Brewers Cup once. And I think actually I was the only female that competed in Brewers Cup.
No way.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was kind of cool. And yeah, so I did Brewers Cup, and that was when I was working with Layla. And then after Layla won USBC, she moved over to Cherry Street Coffee House. And that's when I was still working at the roasting company I was working at. And I competed in my first barista competition, which was a failed attempt. No, I'm just kidding. It was pretty bad though. I learned a lot, and like your first barista competition, you don't know what you're doing. Like, it is literally just to figure it out and see how scoring works and how you do in front of people. Like, there's no way to prepare for that. So your first barista competition there's a lot of learning in it for sure.
So that you picked yourself up after that, because it sounds like the way you put it, and then put it diplomatically, which we all do. Like, it was a great learning experience, and it was. Yeah. I grew so much as a person and a professional.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's hard.
It's so hard. My first, just to give some hope out there, my first barista competition, I finished at 15:59, a second from DQing, and I may have said a curse word or two while on stage with the judges. Not my proudest moment.
Yeah, well, it's not on tape. We may have happened, it may not have happened.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of emotions running high in those instances. So did you just get back up and compete the year after that?
Yeah, I took a couple years off, and shortly after that, Layla had invited me over to Cherry Street Coffee House to help build a training program over there. So I followed her over there, and at the time they were using Dillanos coffee, and right away we're like, okay, let's get into competition. So that was my first year competing with Dillanos coffee, and I qualified for USBC, and that was a really incredible experience, just having a little guidance on how to elevate how competition goes in my routine, and mainly technicals. Like Layla helped a ton with my technicals, just cleaning those up a little bit. And so that was, I competed again 2 years later.
Nice. Did much better.
Yeah, a little bit better. Yeah, a little bit better.
Okay. So at some point you joined Dillanos. Was that right after working with Layla at Cherry Street?
Yeah. So after competing with Dillanos Coffee, in that process, I spent a lot more time with Dillanos, and they asked me to come help at some Coffee Fest trade shows, and I started falling in love with their ethos as a company. I remember going to Dillanos the first few times and meeting everybody, and everybody's like, oh yeah, I've worked here for 7 years. I've worked here for 10 years. I've worked here for 15 years. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Like there's something to be said for that. It's beautiful when you meet people that have worked for a company. It's because they're dedicated and they feel valued in a company. And I saw that right away in Dillanos. So a couple years after working at Cherry Street, about a year after I competed, I graduated college and was kind of ready to start my career. And that's when Dillanos reached out. We're like, hey, we would like to create a position for you. We really value you and want you on our team, and we want you to be our head trainer.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of start from there. And at the time, I don't think I ever expected any of this to happen. Like, I remember when I first started in coffee, and I was like looking up to people and like, wow, they're crazy. There's no way I could be at that level, or I could do that or do these things. And I just started seeing like doors open in my life unfold where, hey, now I'm a head trainer at a coffee roasting company, helping people like new baristas from all around the world learn about coffee and be able to pour latte art for the first time. And it was truly like this entire experience has been absolutely incredible.
So I imagine you see a lot of yourself in your beginnings and the people that you get to train all the time.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. And yeah, I think when you start seeing growth in yourself in the industry, you see that, oh, anybody can do this. Like, if I can do this, anybody can do this. So when I'm training, I make sure I try so much to communicate that and just connect with people in my trainings that you can do whatever you want in this industry. Like, there's so much opportunity, and this doesn't just have to be just a coffee job while you're figuring out your life. Like, this can be your life if this is what you want to do. But it's beautiful. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm absolutely in love with this industry. It's just so beautiful inside and out.
It comes through a little bit. Did you have that moment where you, along the way, really made a decision that this was a career for you?
Oh, yeah. So when I was school was never really my thing. Like, I was not the kid that was like, yes, I get to go to school today. But when I was in college, I hated it. That's when I started getting really into coffee. I was a trainer at a coffee roasting company in Seattle, and I started really diving into coffee, and I was like, I want to do this as a career. And this is as Layla, my relationship with Layla was growing. And I was like, I could totally do this as a career. And I called up my dad and I was like, hey, Dad, I'm dropping out of college and I'm going to do coffee as a career. And that didn't go over too well. So it was an ongoing like push to finish college. But I knew a year into college, I was like, yeah, I want to do this as a career. I have no idea what that looks like. I don't know what's gonna, like, if this will even provide financially. Like, I have no idea what's gonna happen, but I kind of just trusted that through hard work and, just learning from the community and people in this industry that there's growth to be had.
So in all of your experience in the industry thus far, in training, in competition, I imagine your approach has changed over the years in terms of how you prepare for, let's say, competition. Like, as you approach something like this year's competition, what would you say is different about the way you do that versus the first few years that you approached it?
I think honestly it's just growing my team. From the first year I did it, it was me and a couple buddies. Shout out to Brandon Paul Weaver and Maxwell Mooney.
Yeah.
We were just hanging out in the bottom of the roastery, like trying to get ready 2 days before competition. Those were like the good old days. But as it's grown and each year, it's just, one, you take so much from the previous year in competition, but two, just feeling comfortable to understand your strengths and your weaknesses and reach out to people that can fill in those weaknesses. But this year I had an amazing team. I had Dillanos. Our employees probably watch way too many run-throughs. Like, I feel so bad for them. And I would randomly just have these signature beverage concoctions that have like vinegar and all kinds of horrible stuff for your stomach. Just run up and just have people taste them, whether they wanted to or not. And then having Kyle Ramage on my team has been an absolute blessing. It's been super helpful and just has honestly just become a good friend. But he's been able to kind of guide me and trying to take like my ideas and what I want to communicate and kind of twist them in a way that's going to score well on the score sheets. And Phil Beatty just roasting the coffee, like he did roast after roast after roast, and he took my criticism very well, and he was able to find the perfect roast. That coffee tasted incredible day of, and I'm so thankful for that. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like this year, I've had the most amazing team I've ever had. Helping for competition. Like this was not just me whatsoever.
That's awesome. And it feels like when you first start out in competition that it has to be all you, or you're tempted to make it just you, and it's hard to ask for help because there might be a little bit of pride there or a fear of being rejected by people. And it's been my experience, and it sounds like yours as well, that people are really willing to give of their time and their opinion, and even your coworkers tasting all of your vinegars.
Yeah.
So you can build a team, even if you feel like maybe you can't when you first start out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And anything helps. Like reaching out to anybody who has any kind of competition experience. If it's your first time, like that's helpful in itself. But I think, I don't know. I just feel like people want to help. You may not think they do, or they may not have a reason to, but people want to help. Like this industry can be very inclusive, but it takes reaching out and really wanting that to happen.
So this year, talk to us about how your presentation came to be. Like, how did this take shape? What did you draw from for inspiration? And talk to us about the conception of this thing.
Absolutely. So this year I got to actually go to a coffee farm for the very first time, believe it or not. And
wow.
That changed everything for me. My routine is very genuine. It is my heart and very true to the experience I had with this coffee. But I went to La Palma y El Tucán in Cundinamarca, Colombia with Kyle Ramage and Phil Beatty, and we actually got to taste all the coffees that they had, coffees from their neighbors and crops programs, and then their estate coffees. It was truly the most amazing experience. Like I cried the first time I got to hold a coffee cherry, and it was insanity. I mean, and I kind of changed how I teach origin too. Like after experiencing it, it's like, oh no, it's way different than what the books say. But yeah, so after being there and choosing a coffee, I mean, we kept so many amazing coffees, and it was really hard to choose one, but there's one that I kept going back to, which was a natural lactic geisha. And then I came to a point where I was like, yep, this is the one I want to share with the judges. When I got back from Colombia, which was in August, we started working on it right away. Phil started doing sample roasts of it. We started trying to dial in the roast, and I started building a routine. Kyle actually, because Kyle lives in North Carolina, so he's across the country, but he flew out just to help conceptualize an idea, just to get thoughts rolling, and him just helping me dial into what's important to me. And I think that was like a big growth step too, is like figuring out what I wanted to communicate as a coffee, as a barista competitor. And that's when I was like, you know, I want people to be able to experience what I experienced at that farm. Like I feel selfish keeping this experience to myself. So with my routine, I was like, why don't I recreate the experience? Like, how can I recreate this experience and share and communicate in this short little time how important it was to me and how important I think it is to the industry, while also just creating the experience that I had when cupping those coffees. So that's kind of what I built on. And it also helps having that roast dialed in, because the coffee, like the day of competition, it tasted the closest it tasted to the actual farm. So that's it. Like it's tasted good all like this entire time. But when I tasted it in my setup time during finals, and I got the flavors that I was getting when I was tasting it on the cupping table in Colombia, when this is what my whole routine is built on, I was like, yes,
Gosh.
like this is beautiful. Like this is exactly what I wanted to happen. And it was truly incredible. Like I pulled my practice shot and I was like, I can't keep this to myself. I handed it to one of the timers. I was like, please enjoy this. Like this coffee is meant to be shared. It's so beautiful. But yeah, that's it. I mean, as far as my routine goes, that's what my whole focus is how can I recreate that experience?
Wow. I love that it lined up that way for you right at your setup time. It almost give me goosebumps hearing how it worked out. And honestly, the way you're talking about the farm experience and your connection to that experience being the inspiration for your presentation, it really comes through in the way you talk about it. And honestly, I think a lot of people talk about the farms, of course, and you're supposed to. That's part of it. But there's this depth to the way you were talking about it that really shone through, that this was personal. And I think that was evident even on the live stream. So what was it about the coffee that you loved? Why? I mean, because you tasted a bunch and you said, this is the one, and now you need to translate this over to all these different beverages for judges. What were the qualities of that coffee that you said that this is for me and I want to share this?
Yeah. Well, I say it in my routine, but the biggest things that really stuck out to me were the tropical fruit qualities. Like I was getting on that cupping table, I was tasting like pineapple and passion fruit and there's so many tropical fruits. And then the acidity with that lactic process, it's just like this silky acidity. It's so clean and crisp. And then it still maintains some of the geisha qualities, like the florality, just super white blossom florality. Yeah, so that's what I fell in love with. I mean, I wanted something that was going to pop and be different than everybody else's. But I went into the cupping looking for something that drew my attention, that I was excited about. And it was that one. Like it was super clean. It was super beautiful. It was one of the most amazing geishas I had ever tasted. And just coffees in general. I mean, like I said, that cupping table is hard. Like I tried a Typica and it tasted like a geisha. Like this is just a fruit bomb. Like it was insanity. But so many amazing coffees. But this one I just kept going back to because although it was had some classic geisha qualities, the tropical twist on it was super beautiful.
Awesome. So the espresso round, your decisions for ratios of your espresso, it seemed like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had 50 grams out.
Yes.
In 22 in?
20.5 in.
20.5. Okay. So a bit of a longer extraction process. So that was a decision you made that you just liked the way it tasted that way, that you wanted to taste as close to the cupping table in that format as possible?
My goal was to create the most clarity of flavors. That's a lot of what this competition is about, is taste. Like being able to communicate, this is exactly what you're going to taste, and the judges taste exactly that. So I wanted to, with my extraction, highlight those taste qualities so it was undeniable what they were experiencing in that coffee. And so when Kyle and I played around with it, we were finding that those longer extractions created enough separation between those flavors where they were super identifiable, while it was still very cohesive in the tactile.
Yeah, you probably tasted some. Oh yeah, you probably tasted some shots of that were not very good at all.
There were some that weren't that great. And that was another beautiful thing about this coffee, though, is even when it pulled a little quicker or a little slower, we were still getting the same flavors, which is a win for competition.
Nice.
But just different intensities of the taste balance.
Okay. Talk to us about the milk, the freezing of the milk for your decadent freeze distilled beverage. Yeah,
absolutely. Ben Putt, I didn't come up with it. I'm just throwing that out there. It wasn't my idea. But Ben Putt was the first to do it. He was a Canadian national champion, and said it tasted incredible. So Kyle was like, why don't we try this out? And I was a little leery at first because I was like, well, we have this tropical fruit bomb espresso. How's this going to pair with this super fatty sweet milk? And so I honestly didn't want it to work. But really? Then, yeah, I was like, we'll try it. We'll see what happens. But, I tried it out. So the process is super simple. You freeze a gallon of milk, put it upside down and let it thaw for a few hours. I mean, the time differs based on the environment it's in. But once you're about half mass, that's dissolved, then you're good to go. And I tasted it and it tasted incredible. Like it was the most beautiful balance of flavors. And I've never really experienced a drink where the milk was actually an ingredient that augmented the flavors, kind of like what you want out of a signature beverage. But with the freeze distilled milk, like it was pushing those. I mean, my milk course was tasting like peaches and vanilla ice cream and malt chocolate. So it really augmented the flavors of the espresso into these really unique flavor qualities.
Usually the milk round is difficult because you have this masking aspect that you were afraid of, right? Like it just deadens the flavors and doesn't really make them come more alive.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was what was so surprising about it. First, we dropped the size of the cups down to 3.5 ounces. So we're using pretty small cups, smaller ratio, but it was we still got like that vibrant pop through the milk in a good way. Like it was like what you would think of as like a peach milkshake.
Oh, delicious.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. I wasn't mad about it for sure.
So it feels like everything sort of reaches its peak at the signature beverage, especially the way that you end it. Is this the point at which you really wanted to capture that farm experience?
Yeah, the signature beverage was super fun to make. Signature beverage is just, it's kind of crazy. Like you never know what's going to happen and you try so many attempts. Signature beverage is, I think, one of the most challenging courses to do. But I was super stressed about it and I was like hitting this wall of like, okay, nothing's working. And I was actually at dinner with my husband. And my husband, he's not a coffee professional, but he understands passion. So he's there every step of the way. And he's like, well, let's just go through your experience. Like, tell me about the farm. Tell me about the smells. Tell me about like the feeling and the environment. Like, just tell me all about the experience. So I started talking about it, and I was talking about like how I ate a passion fruit for the first time and all this different stuff. And we went to the store and we just bought everything that related to that. We started throwing stuff together. Like for my qualifiers, I basically made a fruit salad and put my espresso in it, so it tasted really good. But I had like passion fruit juice and pineapple juice and all kinds of stuff in there, and a little pop of coconut vinegar, and it was tasting amazing. But from there to USBC, I wanted to kind of make a little more clear lines of what was happening there, and show a little more transition and flavor by adding an ingredient. So I simplified it down to a passion fruit sipping vinegar, where I took passion fruit juice and sugar and coconut vinegar, put it in a sous vide for 6 hours at 148 degrees, and just let it kind of just do its thing, and to create a little more cohesion in the taste experience for that. And then I did like a lychee soda that I used, and then that brought like that tropical quality to it. So when I added all those ingredients together, not only was it ingredients that related to what I actually experienced on the farm, but what it did to the espresso was it created these incredible like watermelon and green apple and grapefruit qualities that were amazing. I've never tasted watermelon in a beverage, so I was pretty pumped on it. And then the last thing was the orchid aromatic mist that I created, which basically we did a little research in boiling down orchid petals. You're able to create like a perfume. And this I wanted to, like, anytime you chill espresso, it loses its aromatics. They start to die down. So I wanted to bring that back to life. And that was one of the big components that made me fall in love with the coffee in the first place. So by adding that experience, not only did it create like aromatics in the beverage, but it created an experience that I experienced at the farm. Like when I first got the aroma on that coffee, it was all white flowers, like super floral and just beautiful. So with the mist, it creates a dramatic experience of that, but it truly, that's how it was in my brain.
So awesome. Sounds like a winner.
It was a lot of fun to make. Oh my gosh.
I love the story of just being at wit's end about this thing and just bouncing ideas off your husband and talking about this just over the table. It's not the greatest time in a barista's life during competition where the answer is just not there. It seems just out of reach. And you almost have to take steps backwards in order to move anywhere.
Yeah, totally. It's a lot of it. And I feel like this is just any kind of design process, but it doesn't really feel like you're moving forward. Like you hit points where you're just like, I can't see the end picture of this. Like, how is this all going to work out? And just banging your head against the wall, just trying to figure it out. But you just keep trying things and keep tasting things and asking for help, and it finally came together. But yeah, sometimes you definitely hit those moments where you're like, where is this going? Like, is there going to be light at the end of this tunnel?
Exactly. I wonder, during this process, it seems like this is one of the most intense preparations that you've had to undergo since your competition experiences have started. What were the most challenging things for you in this process? It sounds like this was maybe one of them, but what kind of things did you really struggle with in this that you needed to overcome?
That's a really good question. As far as like actually building my routine, I would probably say the biggest challenge would be tying, because like I knew what I wanted to communicate, But the hardest thing for me was to direct that to the score sheet. Like, how do I make that score well? And really understanding that, which I had a lot of help from Kyle, which was amazing. But yeah, that was the hardest thing is I was like, why can't I just say this? And he's like, well, you can say that, but the judges aren't going to receive it the way you want it to be received. So just translating it in a way that in 15 minutes it's going to communicate my heart, but also what they need to hear as far as scoring goes.
So it's a compromise, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't really willing to compromise. I was like, I still want to communicate these things. And so, yeah, it was like, how do I not forego communicating this while still adding like a score component to it? But that it helps having people on your team too that know you well and know, like what you do want to communicate and how to direct that. On a personal level, just believing that you can do it too. I went through a lot of questions like, I mean, I'm going up against Andrea Allen and T-Ben Fisher. Like, these guys are legit. They're doing things. There's no way I'm on that level, but believing in yourself because anything can happen. I said that when everything was announced, but anything can happen. Like, you just got to work hard and believe in yourself that it can happen.
That's a great message. I mean, looking to all of them as inspirations and also looking to them as peers and not necessarily people who are, so lofty that they need to put a damper on your spirits, because they're going through their own struggles too.
Absolutely.
I wonder how this is going to, or maybe how it has impacted what you do on a daily basis, because these competitions, they happen once a year. We do the competition routine. A very select few people get to experience that. Mm-hmm. But who you interact with daily as a trainer or a barista or as a manager, those are the people that see you every day. How do you want this to impact the way that you are as a professional daily?
How I want to impact how I'm a professional daily is I just want to be a tool for others and just be an inspiration too, that whatever they want to accomplish, that I'm here to help. And really, like, nothing really changes as far as that goes. I mean, that's how I felt before and now too. But yeah, I just want to be a tool for people, just be helpful and an inspiration, and just be a resource that they can turn to.
And I'm sure that's already in process as you go to train a wholesale account. As the U.S. champion, it's going to put a different spin on that training session for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Here's a question that I think is lurking in the back of my mind and maybe others' minds when it comes to competitions, is that sometimes what you said, I think, is so healthy and so mature of a perspective. But sometimes the obsession of competition can lead us to ignore the daily stuff, the work that we do as professionals that makes us professionals. I wonder if you could speak to competitors out there who are in the process of sort of giving over their life to competition, which is almost inevitable, but how do you go about that in a way where you don't overcorrect to the side of ignoring those things?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be really challenging. It's good. Like, I have a couple people in place in my life to keep me in check during competition. Like, because when you're prepping for competition, it's really hard not to think about it 24/7. So having people to be like, okay, you're at home now. Let's put pause on your brain. It's okay to go back to it once in a while, but be present right now. And this year, I feel like I did a little bit of a better job of that. But what I learned is, you need a healthy balance. It's going to affect how you compete and, how you do. And during the process of prepping for competition, as competitors, we're growing, we're learning things, whether it's through competition or it's through our daily lives in whatever position we're doing. When me as a coffee trainer, like I start looking through a lens of like, okay, I want to do well at competition, but how can I be a better person in this industry? Because it all fuels into how you compete. Like your routine, it's not just a routine. It's a presentation of who you are as a professional and what you want to communicate and what you value. So if you start narrowing in on score sheets and making sure that your texts are perfect, which is important, but if that becomes all your focus and you're missing the bigger picture here, is what message do you want to communicate?
What does this mean to you? What is, let's, a two-part question, I think. What does this mean to you, and how do you, as the U.S. champion, want to impact the coffee community?
This means so much to me. This has been a dream of mine since the beginning, and I honestly didn't think it was going to become a reality, and let alone a reality at 26. But here we are, and I just, I hope that as the U.S. Barista Champion for 2019, that I can just be an inspiration and just be an ambassador that can lead this industry and be a helpful tool to those that want to grow and grow the industry. I really hope that I can inspire others to, go win things for themselves. Like go after those competitions, go after what you want to achieve. And I keep saying that, but anything is possible. Like you have to trust in yourself and your capabilities, and just be willing to grow,
Yeah. And certainly after watching your presentation, hearing your story today, I feel like you've inspired people and are going to continue to do so. What is the next for you in preparation? I know if there's secret vinegars that we can't know about, or if there's, milks that we can't know, I understand, but what are you doing secrets to prepare?
So Boston's in 3 weeks. I don't know if you knew that. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
3 weeks.
It's either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I've chosen to view it as a good thing. That's the only way that I'm really going to get through it. But I was talking to my team and I was like, I think this is a good thing. It's going to be fresh in my brain. We have a little bit of time to elevate and to get ready for that world stage. So Kyle will be flying out to Seattle next week so we can work on competition. Our goal is to try to spend at least 2 weeks together, just prepping for that world stage. So he'll be flying out here next week, spending some time at Dillanos, helping prep for that, revisiting score sheets and talking to judges to see what changes can be made to elevate for that world stage, which is crazy to say. And then I'll be flying down to North Carolina that next week so we can get some time together down there and start prepping down there. But yeah, we have a list of things that we want to elevate and make a little better for that world stage. And, it's pretty much it. And just getting in the mindset too. After winning USBC, the whole world is in our hands. Like seriously, at world competition, anything can happen. And I truly believe that, the United States can win this year. Like I think we can do it. So I'm very excited and I'm very fired up about it and just, counting down the days.
Well, super excited for you and best of luck. That sounds like you've got your work set out for you, but it sounds like you've done most of the work. It's just this refinement process, and it's definitely going to go well. I'll say it right here. You're just an inspiration to us. I really thank you for spending the time talking to us today. And I want to ask, how can we follow along with you as you go through this process, like social media, website, stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to hit me up on Instagram at samline dot, sam_line_dot, all spelled out. And yeah, that I'll be mostly on there. Facebook too at Samantha Spillman.
Sweet. Thank you again, Sam, for
absolutely
joining us. This was really excellent to hear from you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me be on your show here. This is awesome.
Well, I'm really honored to have had the opportunity to talk with Sam so soon after this win and so soon before the World Barista Championships. Good luck to you, Sam. Thank you so much for spending time with us on the show. You really inspired us with your tenacity, with your love for community, with your ability to ask for help and to take a step back and reevaluate. All of those things and more are part of the reason you are the U.S. Barista Champion, and we are so happy to have you as our representative on the world stage. So again, best of luck to you, and thanks again for joining us on Keys to the Shop. Now, if you want to reach out to Keys to the Shop, you can do so by emailing chris@keystotheshop.com. That's CHRIS @keystotheshop.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And also, if you want to find out more information about Keys to the Shop consulting and training, you can just go to the website at keystotheshop.com and then click on the consulting page. That'll give you an overview of what I can do for you in your company through Keys to the Shop Consulting. You know, my main goal is to be able to help you take your operations, your people, and the quality in your cafe to the next level, to help you solve problems that you might be going through in your operations, or to just help you avoid problems if you're just starting out. I want to be able to leverage my 20 years of coffee retail experience to your benefit. And again, I would encourage you to check out the consulting page on keystotheshop.com, or again, you can reach out to me, chris@keystotheshop.com. So that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Sam, for joining me. I hope you all have an amazing week. And of course, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.